The dimly lit basement of the Oak Creek Museum smells heavily of decaying damp paper and broken dreams. We have developed a massive appetite for macro history, those polished documentaries and definitive biographies that offer a clean, finished narrative. But this consumption comes at a cost, as the actual preservation of local, uncatalogued records, our microhistory, continues to shrink. Inside these rotting crates sit the letters and diaries of ordinary people from the 1860s. This is raw evidence, yet because it lacks a commercial finish, it sits one foreclosure notice away from being lost forever. By prioritizing the final, profitable product of history, we are failing to maintain the very foundations required to write it. An older man wanders into the museum to escape the rain, shaking off a wet umbrella. He wears a tweed jacket and a frayed bowtie, a face familiar to anyone who watches historical specials. But away from the studio lights, he looks physically weary. As a scholar who has spent decades synthesizing grand narratives, he has become a statue of his own making. He is the ultimate authority on the past, yet he has grown distant from the actual grit and texture of discovery. In this basement, the ultimate representative of commercialized, finished history stands face to face with a dying repository of the raw material he once championed. This accidental encounter creates a collision between the two worlds. It is a defining moment that will either end in the museum's quiet disappearance or an unexpected survival. The curator recognizes the visitor immediately, but ignores the impulse to treat him like a celebrity. There is no request for an autograph or a promotional quote for the museum's brochure. Instead, the curator hands the scholar a pair of white cotton gloves and points toward a specific crate of letters from 1860. The instruction is simple. The ink is skating, but the voices are still there. This illustrates the filter of history. Chaotic data is reduced and polished into a single book, but a tactile connection bypasses this funnel. The curator invites the scholar to leave the finished narrative behind and return to primary evidence. The scholar stays until the sun goes down. He spends hours sifting through the crate, reading the mundane thoughts and urgent fears of people who lived through the start of the Civil War. The exhaustion he arrived with disappears. He is no longer a statue performing his expertise. He is a student again, caught in genuine wonder. He finds a level of truth in these uncurated voices that his own definitive biographies often smooth over. He realizes that his high-level work has grown hollow because it has moved too far away from this granular human detail. For an elite historian, this isn't just a nostalgic afternoon. It is a necessary reconnection. To keep the grand narratives accurate, they must periodically return to the microhistory found in the dust of primary sources. When he finally prepares to leave, he shakes the curator's hand with an iron grip. It is a physical acknowledgement of a shared mission. On the front desk, he leaves a check for $40,000. This isn't a gesture of pity, it is a calculated investment. He has just spent the day realizing that without this basement, his own research has no foundation to stand on. He leaves a note in perfect calligraphy. It reads, "Books are where we store our history. The people who protect these rooms are the ones who keep it alive. Keep the lights on." The endowment ensures the museum's survival, but more importantly, it protects the raw data that makes the scholar's own career and our collective understanding of the past possible. Oak Creek is a single example of a global necessity. We rely on thousands of quiet local caretakers to maintain the unglamorous archives that prevent our history from fading into myths. This diagram illustrates the true hierarchy. The massive monument of macrohistory, the famous names and big events, rests entirely on a foundation of microhistory. If we lose the unpolished records kept in local basements, the entire structure of our national memory becomes unstable. The famous historian and the quiet curator are two sides of the same coin. One gives the past its voice, while the other ensures the past survives long enough to be spoken for. We do not protect our history simply by reading definitive books. We protect it by ensuring we keep the lights on in the forgotten, damp basements where the evidence actually lives.